coming to get you, Barbara.
Here's some money. Go see a Star War.
But I'm trying, Ringo. I'm trying real hard to be the shepherd.
Welcome back to Long Walk Talks. My name is Stan Wilson Lee. I'm the VP of Long Walk Productions, and I'm joined tonight by my two co-hosts, Chris Wilson Barnes. Let's do that again.
Nope.
No. You live with it.
Chris Wilson Barnes and David Wilson Hensley.
I was wondering how you were going to fuck that up.
That's me, Chris Wiffle Barnes.
No, you're Chris Wilson Barnes. And I'm David Willem Hensley.
This tweet is the symbol of the...
And thank you for listening.
I had practiced that too.
You did. That's the worrisome part.
I know.
Best
Welcome back to Long Walk Talks, everybody. It's been a couple of weeks since we did our last episode. And
I was on a boat.
Stan was on a boat first, and then I was on a boat. And Chris, you've been on dry land this entire time. How's that been?
It was fine up till now.
Until we brought it up. And Stan, we're continuing our Perfect Tens discussion with your third pick. What pick did you pick?
We go now to Peter Piper.
I'm sorry, but my third pick is one of my favorite South Korean films. It would be The Host. Done by, and I'm not even going to attempt the director's name, but
Bong Joon-ho.
Bong Joon-ho.
Bong Joon-ho.
Bong Joon-ho.
I'm just going to be on standby to correct your pronunciations.
That's going to be the last name I'd use tonight, probably. But Bong Joon-ho's, he's the. They're killing me here, man. They're laughing at every pronunciation, so I'm not going to say anything anymore.
That's got to be kind of hard. You hosting this thing.
Bong Joon-ho.
There you go.
Is
Bong Joon-ho. Leonardo DiCaprio.
DiCaprio.
Where the emphasis on the syllables is important in Korean.
Well, and
Bong's film, few films before his Oscar winner, Parasite. Same director.
A few films, like 13 years before.
Yeah, it's 13 years, which is
a few.
I think
a few.
It's 3 movies before. Yeah.
So this film, along with your pick for next month, Old Boy, are probably the ones that our audiences are going to be the least familiar with. So I think in both of these cases, we should give a very brief synopsis for those who haven't seen the film. If you want to watch it, it's currently streaming on Hulu.
Yes, it's still on there. I don't think there's any indication it's going to be leaving soon. So yeah, check it out on Hulu.
It's also on Prime too. So.
Yeah, and if you've got Amazon Prime or Hulu, check it out. What a weird film to have to summarize, but essentially,
I'm not sure if a direct summary, because the first topic is basically
what the fuck.
What the fuck, explaining how this is not really definable in the sense of plot and
no, but
summary.
It'd be fun to try.
It would be fun to try. Yes, Chris?
A man's daughter gets kidnapped by a monster, and he and his family try to save her.
Yeah, there we go.
That's
a tadpole monster.
Yes. We're gonna get into themes, but that's what happened.
That's essentially it.
Yes, a South Korean man's daughter gets kidnapped by a big fish monster that the production crew nicknamed Steve Buscemi.
And I also discovered that this was it's a South Korean film, but it was actually lauded by the North Korean government because of its potentially, I'm doing finger quotes, anti-American themes.
Really? It was surprising. I mean, the Americans figured into it, but they weren't really seen as like bad guys.
Not seen as bad guys, but they kind of instigate.
Yeah, they don't really help much, but for that matter, neither does the South Korean government.
No,
True
no.
that.
It's like
Exactly.
there's basically a whole other movie happening in the background that you don't see.
Yeah, it's a lot like the original Godzilla in that regard. Like, here's a movie about a giant kaiju that's also a movie about how badly the Japanese government handles crises. So That's a lot of what's going on here. So we've already alluded to it or outright said it, I guess. But Stan, what's our first discussion topic?
The first discussion topic is WTF? What the fuck? David kind of, when he watched it, he texted me a bunch of stuff, and the only thing he had to say about it was like 8 different versions of what the fuck was that? Or no, that was fucking weird.
Yeah, so here we go. I told them my review of The Host is the exact same sentence expressed in different ways. Well, that was fucking weird. 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 And finally, well, that was fucking weird.
And what's interesting is it is not the weirdest movie that we've talked about.
I thought it was all right.
I enjoyed it, but still, what the fuck?
And simply because it is like 18 different genres are represented in this movie. It's like my last topic is going to be talking about discussing the different genres of it is. So the idea and mind you, this is probably the maybe 5th time I've seen the movie, and I still begin and go through about at least a third of the movie going, what the fuck? And I've seen it several times. But for me, the what the fuck quality ends up being one of the best parts of it, because it sets you up for all these ideas that will be talked about and will be explored, and it puts, at least especially the main character, puts him into a place where, oh, you get to see, because of the stuff that he does that is not necessarily, like Chris said, it's essentially a girl gets kidnapped by a monster, so you got the kaiju film, and then it's basically a rescue movie.
Well, combined with a dark comedy and a family dramedy.
Yes, and it goes on and on and on.
Much like you, I spent the first third of this movie just after every major significant plot point happened going, what the fuck? Like the whole plot kicks off because a Korean medical assistant.
It was like a mortuary, wasn't it?
Yeah, in a morgue. Is told to pour out a bunch of bottles
by an American mortuary mortician.
American mortician, to pour out a bunch of formaldehyde, despite the warnings that it's going to go directly into the Han River.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And from there, we see like there's different time skips showing there is something weird growing in the Han River, until we finally get to 2006, the year the movie came out and is set, and the creature that the formaldehyde mutated is a giant walking tadpole or some other kind of weird
sort of fish amalgamation, because I think at the end when it gets hit by the whatever the Agent Yellow they call it, it's like a fish drops off of it.
Yes. And the 2 fishermen when they discovered the original baby version. And it's like, look, what's that swimming? Oh my God, this is disgusting.
How many tails does it have?
How many tails does it have? So it's a fish of sort, and the Han River, because of this formaldehyde, it's pretty much destroyed all the actual fish, and has been a host to this kaiju. Basically,
so the Han River is the real host of the movie.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
I mean, let's go ahead and just talk about the kaiju itself, Steve Buscemi. I told Stan the other day, this monster really needed the Jaws treatment. There were way too many like long, lingering shots of this monster, which looked shoddy even by 2006 CGI standards.
It was honestly fine up until it first swarms on land. Because you see it hanging from underneath the bridge,
which was a great effect.
You see people pointing to it in the water, but you can't really see anything. They're throwing it stuff to eat.
The best shot of the monster in the movie is the first time Gongdu sees it on land, and it's charging towards people, off in the distance, slightly out of focus. That was the best the monster looked. As soon as it comes into focus, you're like, wow, I'm in a video game cutscene now.
Yeah. The effects were, I mean, the effects, they tried, but the amount of time you see it on screen doesn't do it any good. And then at the end, when you add the, I want to say, a solid attempt at fire in the final scenes.
Yes, spoiler alert, they finally set this thing on fire in the end.
It looks terrible. It does.
It does.
This movie is a diamond in the rough.
It really is. I know that just based on these last 10 minutes alone, it sounds like we're going to spend the whole time shitting on it. It's not that kind of podcast. No. I really did like this movie.
I liked what was there. I did not like how it was assembled, for the most part.
And we're going to talk about it because for me, ostensibly it's a kaiju film, but then it's actually a family drama. Then it's actually a rescue adventure movie. Then so the idea that all of this stuff does set up his later, because Bong does hybridize many genres throughout the rest of his movies, and yes, Parasite might be the mature amalgamation of all the stuff that he talks about with social satire and everything. But the thing is, I think Parasite is not one of my favorites of his because it takes itself so seriously, where this is firmly, the host is firmly
tongue-in-cheek.
Tongue-in-cheek,
It
yes.
is.
See, when I wish that I had put some more time between watching Parasite and it winning an Oscar. Because when it won Best Picture, Katie and I watched it like a day or two later. And while Parasite was a perfectly fine movie, it was by no means an Oscar winner.
Yeah, see, that's the kind of thing that happens to me when it's like when something is, well, it's kind of like why I kind of shied away from Lord of the Rings when it came out, because it's like, I understand this is probably a great thing and it's getting heaps of praise dropped on it, and it's just like, but everybody talking about it all the time, and it having all this hype just means I don't want to touch it. I don't want to touch it until I have time to sit down and process it for myself.
Right. Stan, when did you see this first?
It was way past 2006, of course, but when it first came out. So I would say, wasn't that? I saw it in Chicago first time. So,
well, do you remember at the time thinking?
No, it had been here because I was here in 2003, so it didn't come out. So I was here and saw it on a Netflix disc.
That's becoming the new way to date oneself. It used to be I rented it from Blockbuster. Now it's I got it on a disc from Netflix.
I had the DVD service from Netflix.
Yes.
Which I still do have, but
no, you don't. I don't think anybody does.
Technically, it still exists.
Yeah, that's
really?
That's what most of the charge you're getting is for the queue that you have.
Fucking hell. Have I had the DVD service for the last 10 years without realizing it?
Probably still
You'd have to check.
If you're paying $16.99,
I am. God damn it.
And you still have the
damn you, Netflix.
Netflix queue.
$16.99. Hold on to that memory. They're about to up it again, I think.
Well, $16.99 is the new.
Is it?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. But no, so I would have seen it, let's say, I guess it would have been as it came out on disc, because I was doing my South Korean stuff, and I had seen his previous film, Memories of Murder. I think I may have seen that after The Host, because the reason why I saw The Host is because of Old Boy, so I wanted to explore all the great South Korean directors at the time, and of course Chan-wook Park is one, and then Bong.
So what you're saying is this was a very early Bong hit.
And that might have been why I loved it so much the first time, is because I was taking a lot of Bong hits at the time.
So that was a very circuitous way of getting around to it. My question was, at the time that you saw this, was the CGI impressive? Or did you watch it like, wow, what a weird fucking fish creature?
Because I knew that it was very low budget. It's like, okay, I guess they did all they could do with the budgetary concerns they had. So it's like, okay, I mean, it's not a rubber suit. I'm thinking I probably would have chose, let's do the rubber suit.
Yeah, I was going to say,
kaiju,
I would have preferred the rubber suit.
because Pacific Rim hadn't came out yet. So, again, we are kind of spoiled because our kaijus that we grew up with are, these really spectacular looking creatures. I think one of the points of it being so low budget, and it's like, okay, we're going to make it a kaiju. But the thing is, let's make it like the stupidest looking kaiju in the world. And it says, you're not going to get pretty awesome looking things when you fucking pollute the Han River. And, I think the look of the creature was purposeful, that it's not going to be this awesome looking monster.
I don't think that's what he means, though.
But I had to set it up because at that time I didn't know so it's like I kind of gave it
the benefit of the doubt.
benefit of a doubt. But then I find out that the special effects were done by Weta Workshop.
Oh, now see, that just makes the whole thing worse.
Well, no, that just depends on how much they paid.
Yeah.
But they didn't do the CGI for the creature. That was done by The Orphanage, which is an LA group, I think.
Made up of real orphans? I would believe it.
But for that time and for the money they had, it's definitely better than the torso stuff of the time coming out with like the Sharknadoes and stuff. I think it's slightly better than that.
You can give Sharknado a pass in that the CGI in that is purposefully terrible. Like that's a sci-fi original movie that knew what it was.
But on the other hand, they have more money.
Did they?
They did have more money.
See, this was in a very weird middle ground for CGI because I couldn't help but compare the kaiju in this movie to a very early reference and a very recent reference, which is the recent one is Starro the Conqueror from the Suicide Squad. Fucking great looking, completely CGI
True that.
kaiju.
I agree.
And then you take it even further back CGI wise, and this isn't even really a kaiju, but if you look at like the T-Rex from Jurassic Park, which was mostly, a lot of that was done practically. I really don't think.
Again, though, that's Skywalker. What was that? Was that Sky?
That was ILM.
ILM, yes. It's ILM stuff, and they had a ton of money.
Yeah.
For that, so but I'm not disagreeing with you at all. It's like that's the hardest part for me with this movie is the CGI for the monsters.
See, there's normally a point in a movie where you just kind of, all right, I'm on board. This is what's happening. This fish creature looks weird, but I'm just accepting it. There was never that point, and I think it was because with all the other stuff happening in the movie, whenever we would get back to the fish, I was like, oh, this fish still looks terrible.
It looked okay to me, except for the more light it was under, like sunlight, they did not do well with it in sunlight. But the less light it was in, like especially the sewer scenes, it looked way better.
I loved it in the sewer scenes.
And it was very much to their benefit that the end takes place under the bridge.
Yes.
Exactly, I agree. And when the daughter, the kidnap victim,
What's her name?
fuck you, that's her name. When she uses the kaiju's tail as the springboard to grab a hold of the rope that she made of the linen or the clothes, I think the creation and the CGI of that when it does the crawl up the wall and up the ceiling to turn around to go after them, after the kids again, I think that was really well done. But
well,
again,
usually those are because QuickTime events are pre-rendered.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on in this movie.
There is.
Aside from the fish shenanigans, there's also the bizarre dark comedy. And I'm talking in particular about the funeral scene. After the initial Steve Buscemi attack, all of the surviving victims are gathered in this one place, and they've all got memorials for the people who died to Steve Buscemi. And, of course, there's a picture of Gongdu's daughter, Hansu. And everyone's looking at it like Gongdu's brother and sister show up. His dad's there. They're all looking at it. They're all crying. And it goes from very naturalistic frustration and grief
to straight up hard crying so hard that they collectively fall over and just keep wailing.
And start thrashing around and kicking each other. And I was, again, not to... keep kicking this dead horse, but I was watching this going, what the fuck?
And that goes.
I didn't. I looked at that and goes, "Oh, this is comedy. This is it's meant to be funny." And I was starting to laugh.
And Chris, that even segues even more so into the next thing. The question of the topic is: did the slapstick elements of the first half diminish or enhance the payoffs of the third act?
Diminish.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
If you want to elaborate, go ahead. I have my answer ready, but when
no, I was just gonna say, it's such a disjointed film because all the slapsticky stuff kind of goes away after that first half.
Yep.
I mean, the only thing that I can think of is the homeless guy smashing Nong Il over the head with a soju bottle.
Yeah.
Which is sort of slapsticky, but it's all so front loaded, like Gongdu passing out.
Also, you forget the homeless guy gets out of the taxi, following him, just picking his nose.
Yeah. I did forget about that. The homeless guy is truly the unsung hero.
I loved at the end when they finally they light the monster on fire, and he's just standing above them on that ledge. And he's just like, huh.
I did that. I helped. Yeah.
He poured the gas.
Yeah. I think you could have cut the slapsticky stuff out of this movie and not made a single bit of difference.
I disagree.
Okay.
Because I think it's integral, and I think the problem is, I was telling you earlier, Dave, it's just not applied well. It should be a thread throughout. This thing should be a black comedy, because the whole movie is about a dysfunctional family who barely functions as a group, trying to pull together to save who they all recognize as probably the best member of their family. It should be about them working towards that while still not being 100%. And it is that to a degree, but then again, it's also just, it's just like they decide, okay, we're going to stop doing that for a while. Now we're going to be more tense and suspenseful. And now it's going to be more of a thriller kind of vibe. Now here's a sad part. Now here's a heartwarming part. But they're not blended together. It's just like at the end when they're finally killing the monster, but Hanso has died saving the other boy from being killed by the monster, it turns out, and they're mourning her, and it's sad, and it's just like, but but it was just in that moment and honestly, I told Dave I was upset that they killed her, because it was just, they wanted it to be extra tragic at the end, because she could have survived that.
And I spent most of the movie thinking that she was going to outlive them all, because Chris is right. Hanso is the smartest, most capable character in the entire movie. She is the child they are trying to rescue, and she is more responsible and intelligent.
The adults do find
they do
their
Gongdu
personal qualities.
Gongdu immediately, once he sees Hanso getting kidnapped, he basically, he mans up at the start and helps that American try to fight off the monster and get it away. I mean, the good qualities are there, but
that's one of the things that I loved is, yes, Gongdu leapt into action, but this being like a more down-to-earth kind of movie, he's just really bad at it.
Right. Yeah.
Like, this is not Liam Neeson in Paris trying to find his daughter. This is a lazy South Korean man with some sort of mental cognitive functional disability.
Protein deficiency.
Yeah.
Which the boy at the end also has.
Yeah.
I find out.
Thrust into a fantastical situation that he is in no way prepared for. And I appreciate...
But he commits to it.
He does. But I appreciated the hell out of that. Like, this guy is not an action movie star. This is all of us if we're in this situation.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the actor as well. And the actor who plays the father, the what they call him, the slow-witted father.
Don't they call him a stupid donkey at some point?
Yes. In the movie, they call I think his own brother calls him a stupid donkey or something. But that actor is also the lead in Parasite too. They're the same actor.
Holy shit! Is it really?
Yes, or it should be, right? Yeah. Because he's pretty much...
It's either that or you think all Asian people look alike.
No, because...
you are correct. Yes. Yeah, they're both...
And he's also in Memory of Murder and
Snowpiercer.
And Snowpiercer, yes.
But to answer the question more succinctly, I don't think it diminishes anything, but it's so unevenly applied. All of it is so unevenly applied that diminishes things.
And that's why I'm saying Parasite is his more mature version of putting all this stuff together.
Absolutely.
Because the social satire is more streamlined, the family drama is more succinct, and and it's like the black comedy is more structured, but it's so serious taking.
All I'm saying is that if there had been a kaiju in Parasite, I might have enjoyed it more.
Me too.
I told Dave, I said, this would have been great as like a one-season show. To stretch it out a little more and give those elements time to grow and weave together better.
I absolutely agree.
Like this thing is scuttling around the background.
I absolutely agree. What they did in 2 hours, though, to make it just a 2-hour one, go to the theater. I mean, it broke records. It's like the biggest box office movie until Parasite.
So it
was a big bong hit.
I'm just gonna say that the best scene that was the perfect blend of everything they were going for was the one you mentioned earlier. My favorite part of the movie is when she thinks the monster is sleeping and she has to try and run up its back to grab the makeshift clothing rope that they made to try and get out. And she runs up and she grabs it, and you only see her from the waist up, and she's pulling. It's like she realizes she's not going anywhere, and then the camera moves back down to show you that the monster grabbed her. And it slowly, the best part is the monster doesn't do anything other than just slowly lower her to the ground, and it sits there waiting for her to do something.
Yep.
And that is a perfect blend of, oh my God, that's hilarious and terrifying.
It's hilarious.
I knew you were going there.
But yeah, it's like, and again, I have to consider the fact, that when they're making these movies, the South Korean, but even though it might have been a high budget for a South Korean film, which it wasn't.
It's still not a Hollywood blockbuster.
It's not financially up to par with what we could do here. Viable. I mean, but the thing is, the stuff that the audiences are looking for, especially from that director, is there.
Yeah.
And
don't worry, we fixed that by finding those movies and then remaking them in Hollywood so they're better.
Exactly. Like Old Boy, which we'll talk about next time, is that
I'm not watching the remake.
It's really good.
You've told me that.
It really
I'm still not watching it.
And they actually improve. But the thing, and we'll talk about, it's like the thing you notice with, especially and I'm not going to say it's just the South Korean directors, but especially them, is as they continue making movies, their themes are similar in each film, but each movie is more mature.
They expound upon it.
They expound upon it. Except in this case, where Memories of Murder, the serial killer film previous to this, to The Host, it's a lot. It's truly dark.
Does it have a kaiju?
It does not have a kaiju, but it does have a serial killer. So,
if I'm remembering correctly, this kind of, not that it's not a good watch. But this kind of rode the wave of like early aughts when it was like the South Asian like horror boom was happening, right?
Yep, it was all part of that, included in that.
Well, like we talked about Takashi Miike.
Takashi Miike definitely is.
We talked about in our very first episode the film Audition.
Yep.
Ichi the Killer. There were so many South Korean and Japanese horror movies.
Well, this was around the time of also like The Ring and The Grudge.
The Ring,
Ringu,
Two Sisters, other
the Vengeance trilogy.
The Vengeance trilogy.
I think One Missed Call was one of them.
Oh, One Missed Call. Yes, it totally is. Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely was riding that wave, just with the kaiju.
With the kaiju, because I think it might, well, until Oja later, which he also did, I think. Out of that group you're talking about, and in Chan-wook Park, he doesn't do kaijus, but the idea that, and this will go into the third question, is that kaiju is just incidental.
I mean,
is it a kaiju movie?
You could have completely removed the kaiju from the equation and made this a movie about just some rando kidnapping Gongdu's daughter, and the byproduct would have been largely the same.
Kind of,
yeah.
Still a dysfunctional family, still bumbling their way through multiple rescue attempts.
I mean, the family is the only one actively concerned about the monster. It seems like everything else in the happening.
Yes, people,
because it's a virus.
Yeah, people,
but it's not
a virus.
People stop caring about Steve Buscemi so fast, and they get so stuck on the virus part of it. Which, spoiler alert, turns out there isn't one.
It just seems like people got infected from being in contact with the monster or something.
Yeah. So again, like the kaiju is just sort of incidental.
Yes.
It's a big old metaphor.
Some would say it's a red herring.
With a prehensile tail and tongue.
And that goes into topic number 3, if we're there yet.
Sure.
I kind of thought we already were.
Is it a kaiju movie disguised as a family drama, or vice versa? Or is it a family drama that wants to be a rescue adventure movie? Or is it a serial killer movie?
Well,
that
I don't
wants
think it's
to be a kaiju movie.
I don't think it's a serial killer movie unless we're counting.
But that,
no,
like you said,
no, it's not a serial killer movie because when you see the monster vomit up all those bones, it's a mass murder at that point.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a dark family dramedy kaiju movie. And I think it could have committed to 2 out of those 3 things and left out the third. I feel like this should have been a family dramedy kaiju movie. If you just take out the whole dark comedy aspect of it entirely, or you make it a dark comedy family dramedy, or a dark comedy kaiju movie.
They made it a Gamera movie, with it's like, but Gamera that's not nice to kids. It's like, because
has Gamera ever been nice to kids?
He was known as friend to all children in his movies.
Oh wow, I don't know my kaiju.
It's like in the first movie.
Also, I want to point out we're using a Japanese term for a South Korean monster.
Well, okay, so what's the South Korean term for kaiju?
I don't know. You got the internet in your hands.
It's still kaiju.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's still kaiju.
I'm just poking around.
There is something that you could look up, but there's a word that describes.
Don't tell me what to do.
that word that describes both the father and what happened to him as a kid, and then what happens to the little boy when he's with his brother and they're doing the scavenging and stuff. There's a name for they're not thieves, but they break into places and take
Sori.
Sori, thank you.
Yes.
And
which I only remember because it sounds so similar to Sorry.
And that might be.
Yeah, it's basically like gentlemen thieves. Like
yes.
you don't steal something for the hell of it. You steal something because you need it.
And in the father's case, his dad took him through this, and he ended up, because that was their life, and he lived on the streets, and he ended up with a protein deficiency, which caused his brain to have an issue.
That is also the whole protein deficiency thing is largely conjecture made by their father to possibly explain what is wrong with Gongdu. It's never explicitly stated that that's what it was. All we know is that
those nice scientists fixed it for him.
Well, yeah, he's not very bright. He's narcoleptic, and somehow getting a lobotomy fixed all that.
Well, it's not really a lobotomy because they don't really remove. Like they don't. Well, the amount they get a tissue sample from his lobe, but they don't really remove it.
Right. So let me rephrase. Getting a drill through the forehead managed to fix him.
It was kind of like a very small trepanning, if you've ever heard of that.
Let me rephrase that. Getting a very small trepanning through the head fixed him.
Yes.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Fuck off, Chris.
What? I'm just trying to help here.
But then, you know, and this is why I asked about the diminishing or the enhancing of the returns of the payoffs in the third act, is because we get why the little boy exists in the movie.
Well, yeah, because he's a reflection of young Gongdu.
He loses his daughter, but he gains a son who's basically exactly like him.
Right.
And which is one of my favorite scenes also is when the daughter tries to escape, but also the end of the movie where they're learning about that the TV's on, talking about how it wasn't a virus. It was actually a really horrible accident that created this giant tadpole in the Han River because Americans wanted to dump formaldehyde, and it's like, so they were and the kid is sleeping, and the dad is cooking, supper's ready. Boom!
Kid is immediately
he bolts up, right? Yeah.
and then says, "Turn off the TV. I just want to eat."
Well, yeah, because the conveniently timed news footage that is on is the American and South Korean governments trying to blame each other for what happened.
Yes.
If we're talking about favorite parts, mine has to be Namil in the office that he's in that he has to escape from. But really, it's the one time each that they all get to be capable people.
Yep. Right.
They are fuck ups for the majority of the movie. These three siblings. But they each get their own moment to shine. Namil gets his office where he finds Hansu's location and then escapes all these people that are after him. Namil gets hers when she finally nails the fucking shot with her bow and sets Steve Buscemi on fire.
Should we talk, because there's a reason why that's so important, is because she's basically a competitive archer.
She's an Olympic level archer.
She's an Olympic level archer that never fulfills her potential. She always chokes.
They foreshadow it heavily in the opening.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that none of these kids have lived up to their potential. Gongdu, because of his problems, his mental issues. Nam-il, because he was an alcoholic anarchist who received what they describe as like a very high college education, but has done nothing with it. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then Nam-il is an Olympic level archer who always chokes on the last shot. So naturally, they're all going to come through in the end, which they do.
And they do.
And it's enormously satisfying. But there was a point in the movie, honestly, where it's like everybody's darkest hour. Like Gongdu has just been. Well, I'm going to keep saying lobotomized for the sake of it.
They all have the moment where they have the chance to meet their potential and fail again.
Right, but it's like it's everyone's darkest hour. I honestly thought that they were all the siblings were going to die. Their father was already dead at this point. I thought Hansu was going to be the sole survivor of the movie. That we were going to have like 2.5 hours of setup just to be completely subverted, in that she needed none of them this entire time. She was fully capable of getting out on her own. But alas, no, we still get them coming together and defeating Steve Buscemi, and poor Hansu dies.
She dies. And I'm not sure if I completely. I think she has to die for this.
Hard disagree.
For this dynamic to end up work, and because if she doesn't die, he doesn't gain
Yes, he does.
Well, you think he would take both of them in?
Absolutely.
And I agree with you.
Living or dead, he would be like, oh, Hansu fought so hard to protect this boy, that he should come with.
And
yeah, I agree with that.
I'm just salty about it. It's fine to have your opinion.
But I am also down on the fact that she had to die. But what she earned her heroic death.
Well, yeah, no.
She earned her heroics because everything she did to protect the little one, Kaiju was just brilliant. And like you said at the beginning of the podcast, it's like she was the most capable of this whole family, and she's what, 12?
Yeah,
like 12 or 13.
12 or 13, and she's the one that she in the write-ups, they say, she's embarrassed about her family. I don't think she really is. I think she...
No, but she should have been.
She realizes
Here's the thing. She was being a normal teenager.
She's being a normal teenager.
Honestly, yeah.
She loves her dad, I believe, even though he has... because she keeps him together. She really loves her grandpa, who is like the Rock.
Quintessential grandfather.
He's the quintessential grandfather and
the problem is she's that kind of kid who is, unfortunately, because of her family, required to grow up way faster than she needs to, she should. So she has to be hyper competent and help, or she has to be that kind of person because the people who are supposed to be looking after her can all the time.
And she's the most resourcely person
by far,
because when she's dropped into that sewer area with the creature, and she raids all the bodies that he's already to gather whatever she could get to possibly have a future, and then when the little boy's brought in, it's just like she immediately, there's no question that she's going to take care of him, and so the idea that she earns her heroic death, in the sense, and she earns it by protecting him inside the creature.
Yeah,
basically right.
I wanted, after all this setup, I wanted that 12-year-old girl to enjoy an ice cold beer with her pop.
Yeah,
and that is one of the reasons why it's a rated R movie too. Is that she dies
because I thought you were going to say because her dad gives her a beer. Which I'm sure didn't help the rating very much.
That was PG-13, but then the death of the kids in peril.
Right.
There's a lot of kids in peril in this movie, and I think her death does set up everybody. It's like yes, the dad is all about revenge now, but the sister and the brother, the aunt, the uncle come together and basically create this whole way to kill the creature, and
they stumble their way into
it. But the hero in this is like the arc that the aunt takes, the Olympic archer. She almost dies. She gets, ostensibly she's dead, but then she's just knocked out. And she comes, she works some shit, and she becomes the hero of this movie, and has the.
She definitely gets the biggest hero moment of the movie because not only is she there after Nam-il drops his final
Molotov.
Yeah, after he drops his final Molotov cocktail, she is there to. Use it to light the tip of her bow,
which is a great
moment. She nails the shot, hits the kaiju right in the eye, and then she gets the slow motion turn around and walk away from it shot. Fucking badass.
After newfound homeless friend dumped gasoline on the monster.
Yes. Again, unsung hero, man.
And it's like, so I think all this, and this all ties in to go back to, it's like, yes, this is disguised as this or disguised as that, but it's all about this family that we call dysfunctional and probably will call dysfunctional forever, but the idea that they end up with a reason to fix themselves. And then he ends up running
his dad's
shop. and taking care of the little boy.
And stopped dyeing his hair.
And stopped dyeing his hair.
Now finally responsible. I'm just saying, all of that could have happened without his daughter dying.
Yes.
Sure. But it made it even more poignant.
It's starting to occur to me as we've been talking that this movie is not kind towards women. Gongdu's wife is out of the picture, apparently left as soon as Hanso was born.
Yeah, apparently she's just like, I cannot handle staying with you and having a baby. I'm gone. That's the gist of it.
The siblings, their mother left, and their father talks about that. I don't think I ever made it really clear why she left. Namjoon is the archer who chokes all the way up until the very last minute. Like when she first tries to encounter the creature, she full on wolfs her one shot at it, and it just kind of bats her out of the way.
Oh, he almost bitch slaps her.
Yeah, and then Hanso dies. So yeah, really not a kind movie towards women.
It's weird.
I say that, but the movie's not kind towards anyone.
No, it's not kind. But it is the women that are the strongest characters in this movie.
Yes, all two of them. Two of them that are on screen.
But the thing is, they are so much more stronger and much more interesting than because all the men are seen as the bumblers,
right.
Seen as the criminalistic, and
especially if they work for the government or the American military.
The American military. You know, so we don't know if the kaiju was male or female. So
did anyone lift up its tail and look?
That's what, because it had to have been.
This is an unproductive area of discussion.
But the idea that because
no,
for all intents and purposes, the creature is the strongest character in the movie. But
that is a very big stretch that I will not allow.
But now I and Bong is pretty. I think he's been known as pretty strong in his women characters throughout his history. So I'm gonna still put him there in that sense.
I guess I just need to see more Bong movies. Stan, did you have any more discussion topics? Was it just those three?
It was those three. And the idea that it's really hard to put this into a category because I think it's purposely uncategorical.
No. Obviously, it's a dark comedy, family dramedy kaiju movie.
Yes, and I also think it's all his favorite stuff too. It's all Bong's favorite stuff, and he put it all into one movie because he does love himself some kaiju movies, and he does, and we
love some family drama.
He loves himself some social satire, and there's a lot of social satire, and there's a lot of family drama, and it's like, because then he gets his later stuff is really structured.
Well, he also loves his blue collar people.
He loves his blue collar people a lot. Yes. Yeah. His downtroddens. He loves his downtrodden folk.
Because the majority of their troubles that aren't kaiju related come from the white collar people that they encounter or have to deal with. Like the doctors at the hospital, like the people that sell out Namil when he's trying to get help because they want the bounty on him.
They have to deal with the black market people when they're trying to find their way to Hansu.
Exactly.
Chris, did you have any final thoughts about the movie that you'd like to talk about?
It's worth watching once at least. Even it's worth giving it one shot. You may be down with it, you may not be, but it's unique and an interesting watch.
I'll agree with that. I am glad I watched it. It did not blow my socks off the way that Almost Famous did. And out of all of them, I'm very much looking forward to seeing Old Boy again because it has been several years since I've seen that one. But overall, like Chris said, watch it once, know what you're going into. It is not strictly a one genre film. It is a many genre film that indirectly stars Steve Buscemi.
Who is known for his multi-genre stuff. So. So playing kaiju is probably just another thing in his hat.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this discussion of the host. Stan, I'm going to ask, I do it every time we do one of these. Are you on social media, and can people find you?
Twitter.
Okay. What's your Twitter handle, Stan?
Twitter handle, Stan?
Very good.
That's too many characters. That wouldn't work.
TWTR.
Are you just?
You just took out all the vowels?
I see.
Chris, if people would like to follow you or reach out to you online, where could they do that at?
Don't.
Thank you.
But they can do it at Chris the OK. But if you're finding me on Twitter, I assume it's to start a fight.
That sounds right, yeah. If you would like to follow me online, the best place to do that would be on Instagram at DB Hensley. There are a lot of pictures of my dogs and my favorite alcohols. If you would like to keep up with Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us, or you can search for Long Walk Productions and Long Walk Podcasts on Facebook. To see more of our original work or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming, you can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show or any of the shows on the Long Walk Podcast Network, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you are listening on. Steve Buscemi.
Bong.